Hi, my name's Sam, and welcome to How to Succeed at Your Development Centre. In a second, I'm just going to whiz through some stats that you may find really useful for the day itself. So please feel free to pause on any of these and have a little look at them as we go through the slides. There we go. I hope you found those really useful. And as I said, my name's Sam. I'm a member of the application management team here at Teach First. Those hard-hitting statistics on the previous couple of slides really show the extent of the educational inequality that so many young people are facing and are a reminder of the difference that you can make on our training programme, working with us to build a fair education for all. Just to touch on what we're going to cover, I'm going to go through the application process with you, an introduction to the day itself, understanding our competencies, and an overview of each assessment. So, just a little moment to think about your understanding and motivation competency at this stage. And before we move forward, this is a really important competency I want you to start thinking about straight away. I want you to think about your own motivation for why you want to join the Teach First training program. What is it going to mean for you? And what would it be to be an ambassador at the end of the program? Have a think about that as we move forward into the next couple of slides. So, it's no secret that we are experts in teacher training and leadership development within schools. But here's just a few facts that might be really useful for you to know. We're part of the Times Top 100, which is the definitive guide to Britain's most sought after and prestigious graduation schemes. We're incredibly proud that Teach First has been in the top 15 since 2007. We're even proud that two other organisations in the top 100 were founded by people who did our training programme, proof that the programme will set you apart. We're a diverse network of leaders who confront educational inequality by teaching for at least 2 years and then working with unwavering commitment in every sector of society. Did you know that our ambassadors go on to become head teachers? We've had 92 already. We've had people set up social enterprises such as Jamie's Farm, and many will use the skills they develop to influence the corporate sectors, with many of our ambassadors now working with organisations like PwC, Accenture, and the Civil Service. As I mentioned about that understanding and motivation competency, make sure you do your research on our programme so you can clearly show that in your interview. So first of all, congratulations on a successful application. Following the day itself, you'll hear from us within 15 working days via email. Whether or not you've been successful, you will have the opportunity to request feedback from the day. And if successful, you will receive your offer, including your subject and region. You will then have some enrolment tasks to complete, including your right to work in the UK. And those specifics on enrolment tasks will be explained by your recruiter. Your recruiter will also be on hand to support you at any point as your main point of contact until you start the Summit Institute programme. Our Summit Institute is our initial teacher training period where we ensure you have the skills you need to start in the classroom in September. We have two options available to give you full flexibility. There's full-time and part-time options. Your application management recruiter will be able to go through those specific dates with you or your recruiter at offer stage if needed. The Summit Institute is a mix of online and in-person training. The in-person training will run for all the trainees. You'll have some in-person days to do in a school as well, which is really exciting. But just be sure to discuss those part-time and full-time options with your recruiter. I'd also like to point out at this stage the little added information there, which is your proof of right to work in the UK. We're unfortunately not able to accept the 2-year graduate visa anymore. So please do reach out to your recruiter if you feel that does apply to you, so we can address that straight away. So the Development Centre. This gives us the opportunity to see what you can do, rather than just hear it or read about it. Of course, we want to challenge you, but we also want you to enjoy the day and gain tangible, useful feedback. From the application and our guidance so far, hopefully you can see we're looking for potential, not the finished product. Whether you get a place in our training program or not, your development is important to us. That's why we've created a process that builds your skills and experience over the selection day. You are assessed on your performance alone, not your performance compared to someone else. It's just about how you demonstrate the competencies. You are assessed across each of the activities equally. And as I said, we know that you're not yet a polished teacher. So I want you just to have a think about this, and feel free to pause this at any point to think about this in a little bit more detail. But I want you to think about what we're looking for on the day. Have a think about your favourite teachers at school. What made them so good? Have you considered how you'll show us this on the day? Have a little think about that, and feel free to carry on into the next slide when you're ready. These competencies are the key ingredients of a successful trainee on our programme, and these are the only things that we're assessing you on. If there's any competencies that you're unsure of, please feel free to reach out to your recruiter to discuss this. It's really important that you know all about the competencies and what they each mean for you. As I mentioned earlier, your motivation competency is really, really important that you get that across incredibly well. So please do feel free to discuss that with your recruiter too, as well as the others that I've just mentioned. So a little bit of a points to competencies versus skills. They are a little bit different. A competency is a behavior, whilst a skill is the ability to do something. Competency questions are interview questions that require you to provide real life examples as the basis of your answers. They're not reliant on you having experience or opportunities. They can be personal, professional, or educational examples. Just remember, the assessor knows nothing about you. They cannot presume any information. They can only go off what you're telling them. So you must be extremely clear and consider what it is exactly you're trying to get across. And remember, as I said, the assessors will not have seen your application at this stage. So please do make sure you use any examples you feel would be necessary that you did include in your written application. Our interview is largely competency based, as we said, and most questions will require you to tell us about a specific situation you've been in which demonstrated those competencies. Competency based interviews are the most widely used and objective type of interview. Notes will be taken, but don't be put off by that note taking or by the limited response or lack of feedback. The assessors are told to remain completely neutral throughout, but they are really friendly and approachable if you do need them to repeat or rephrase the question. As I said, use an example from any part of your life that you think is a strong demonstration of that competency. And try and think of a couple of examples. That way you do have a backup answer if you do need it. We will assess you based solely on what we observe and hear from you on the day. Okay. Just as a little example, I want you to try and be specific. A particular interaction with a customer working in a supermarket is a much better example than just a generic list of duties of what your job entails. So make sure you do really hone in and be specific. It's easy to prioritize your teaching episode and spend less time preparing for your interview, especially if you've done interviews before. But please remember, each part of the day is equally important. If you are unsure of what a competency means, as I said, please ask your recruiter. So the case study. Now, this is a group exercise which is designed to test how you think, solve problems, express solutions, and interact in a group setting. You'll be in a group of up to 6 people and 2 assessors who will introduce the task and then step back to observe you and your group. You're not in competition with anyone else. Remember, work together. Make sure you contribute consistently throughout the exercise. As I said before, the assessors can only assess on what they see and hear. The only thing you're being assessed on is those competencies. So think about how you can demonstrate each competency in that task. What does good interaction actually look like? What might you say or do to demonstrate that behavior? And are you being inclusive of other people? Think about how you're getting your opinion across as well as what you're saying. And social cues can be a little bit difficult, especially in a virtual environment. So just some things to consider. Whether you are completing that day in person or on our Top Score platform, we'd much rather see that lively discussion. So don't worry if you accidentally interrupt someone. Just apologise and move on as you would in normal conversation. Remember, you're on camera being watched the whole time throughout the task. Even if you're not speaking, the assessor is still assessing you. So just make sure, remember that you are being watched. Active listening is really, really key. Okay, so the teaching episode. This tends to be the part of the day that applicants have the most questions about. Rest assured that we're not expecting you to have necessarily done anything like this before. The idea is that you're having a 4 minute one-to-one catch-up tutorial with a pupil who's been struggling to understand one of the topics that have been sent to you 7 days before your selection day. We want you to create a pupil-centered activity that develops their learning. You will teach your teaching episode once, get feedback, have a couple of minutes to consider that feedback and make any necessary changes. Then teach the same teaching episode again to the pupil. If you're completing your development centre day online, for your teaching episode, you'll be introduced to 2 assessors, one of which will then turn their camera and microphone off, and the other will revert into the character. You're allowed to share your screen for the whole time if you want to, but please consider how you will keep your episode interactive rather than it turning into a presentation or a lecture setting. It may be useful to start with your screen sharing to avoid any tech issues halfway through. If you're completing the day in person, you will still have only one assessor as your pupil. You'll have a minute to set up, but you won't have access to any technology. So if you were thinking about making a PowerPoint, maybe consider how to adapt this. You'll have a dedicated area to stand with a whiteboard that you can Bluetack resources to, and you must provide that Bluetack yourself. The child, or the assessor acting as the child, will have a mini whiteboard and a pen. They are going to interact with you just as a student would, so please treat them as such. They're expecting this. They will act as a student would for the age group you are teaching, so secondary, 11 to 14 years old, Key Stage 2, 7 to 11 years old, etc. We understand this can feel a little bit awkward, but the assessors do this all the time, and the best way to be successful is just try and relax into it. Practicing with someone at home might really help you get used to how it feels, so please feel free to do that and have a bit of fun with it. Choose a topic from the subject you'll likely teach on the programme, but whatever you choose won't necessarily be the subject you're offered on the programme. This isn't for you to prove your knowledge at all. You will be tested on your knowledge in something called a skills knowledge assessment, which will be one of your enrolment tasks once you hopefully get an offer. This is about how to simplify a concept to a pupil who is struggling. When you're preparing a teaching episode, think about the age range of the student. If you're preparing a lesson for 11 to 14-year-old, ensure it is a suitable content for them. Could you look at that curriculum to give you a little bit of a support in what might be needed and what they'll be looking for? Try and be as creative as possible. There's no real restrictions as long as we get that development of learning through. So if you want to do an MTV Cribs episode to talk about geography settlements, then go for it. Anything is really encouraged to be creative. So a couple of top tips that I want you to consider. Consider what you want your pupil to have learned by the end. Think of interactive ways you can engage your student with the content. Remember, if online, we will only be able to see what is within in the screen. So framing and thinking about that when planning is really important. What if your person is going to be 1 meter away? If you're in person, just again, make sure that's been considered. Consider those ways in which you can check what your pupil has learned. So verbal questions, those multiple choice activities maybe, or any independent work. Just remember, whichever you pick, it must continually be interactive. Students in real classrooms have different learning abilities. So consider how you could approach this in your teaching episode. Are you helping your specific pupil? Think about ways in which you can practice your teaching episode to prepare for the day. As I said, you can practice with someone at home, but make sure you think about any props or materials that you're going to use. All the information for the teaching episode is in the guidance on your Development Centre portal. You will have the DC Guidance tab and a DC Study Material tab. So please make sure you've read all the information. It's really important to go through it all. So the other part of the day, evaluating your performance. As I said earlier, it's just as important as your teaching episode, your interview, and the group task. I would say it's really helpful after the group task to try and get a couple of notes down for how you think that it went. It's really, really great then to kind of maybe relax when you've got those notes down, and then you'll be able to discuss your performance with your assessor after the group task. The one after the teaching episode will be a written self-evaluation. You'll have a link to an online form, or if in person, you have the option to complete it by hand as well. There'll be questions on it, so make sure you complete it as soon as you're sent the link. Don't wait too long. There will be prompts so you know what they're looking to evaluate on. It might be easier just to really check over your work, your spelling and your grammar and things within the TopScore platform when doing it online. It will support you with that, but please do double check all of those things. The aim of the task is to give a well-rounded reflection of how the exercise went, what went well. Don't be afraid to highlight your strengths. Were there any elements that could be improved upon? What improvements might you suggest? And overall, just be really honest. The assessor wants to see your self-awareness of how you would be in the classroom, evaluating your own performance. Okay, so the day itself and how it works. You won't receive the timetable before the day. This will be available through My Schedule on TopScore once you've logged in for your development center on the morning. I can't stress enough, you must read all of that guidance that I've just referred to in the previous slide. It's a really long document because it tells you everything you need to know, especially specifics around whether you're completing the day online or in person. There's expense guidance there for travel to London, and some extra guidance to keep both you and the team safe if you are coming to the London office. Your recruiter, as I said, throughout this workshop is always going to be here to help if you do have those questions at this point. If there's any reason that you can't attend, please let us know as soon as possible. We need to try and manage our resources really effectively. So again, really do let us know if there's any reason you can't attend on the day. TopScore. This is our purpose-built online development center platform. So it was designed to give you the best possible experience for the day. If in person, you will use TopScore for your timetable and to access information on the day. If virtual, your entire development center day will run through TopScore. The guidance for TopScore can be found in your development center guidance on your portal. You will find a link to a written guide for TopScore, a virtual tour of the platform, and a test function to allow you to check your screen and microphone. If you'd like to share your screen or use the whiteboard function during the teaching episode, there's guidance on how to do that as well. So I'd really recommend looking through it. It's really crucial that you read this information and test your technology to ensure there are no impacts on your day. You will be able to log on to the platform 24 hours before your development center. So please ensure you've checked that you can log in before the day. So again, we don't have any issues on the morning. So for the day, a few little top tips that you can see there on the screen, but just an extra couple of tips that I wanted to let you know about. If you are in person, you'll be getting a little stationery pack, but please bring what you need with you for your teaching. We won't be able to print anything off for you. For any of the kind of right to work messaging that we need to check over, again, all that guidance in the initial guidance on your DC portal. If you don't have your right to work document with you on the day, it's okay, it's not the end of the world, just try and have it with you. We'll be able to get those documents from you at offer stage if we haven't been able to acquire them beforehand. So yeah, don't worry too much, but again, if you are worried about anything to do with right to work, once more, please speak to your recruiter. So I think just as last little slide, as a bit of a call to action, it's really exciting, the development center. It's really exciting to be at this stage of the process. Overall, teachers are needed more than ever. The impact of the pandemic on young people has been hugely detrimental in many ways. Before COVID-19, you only had half the chance of getting good grades at school if you were growing up in a poor community. Those odds just got a lot tougher. Imagine this. You've had months away from university, you've tried to get your work done at home, but you had no laptop, no internet access, and no quiet space. You get back and realise your classmates had what they needed to stay on track. They're ready and you're not. And that's the reality of millions of poor young people are facing. They're back in school, sat alongside their classmates who had what they needed to keep learning in lockdown. For many, their assessments go out throughout the year, and so will always be around the corner. This isn't just about fairness. We've got to consider also the economy impacts. 3 years after the last global crash, more than 1 in 5 young people were left unemployed. For this generation, getting a good job will be really hard, and without good grades, nearly impossible. We need to recruit, develop, and mobilise as many as possible of our country's most promising future leaders to grow and strengthen the movement to make education fair. And hopefully, for yourself, applying now will have really benefited you too. Gaining your place now means more time to brush up on your subject knowledge and gives you that security of your graduate role. Finally, Good luck. Thank you so much for watching. And any questions, as I said, please speak to your recruiter. Thank you so much.